Hey everyone, it's Kenton Becker, American Pacific Mortgage. I'm here again with another weekly video update for you. Okay, this week's video tip, I actually got this idea from last week's video tip in one of the last points that I made when I was talking a little bit about preparing to buy a home this next year. And in that point, I talked about how somebody could decide not to buy a house, let's say back in 2020 or 2021 or somewhere around there, and they said, "Oh, I'm just going to keep renting, or I'm just going to wait till the market changes." And when I started talking about that in that video, I was mentioning how now all they've done is just paid so much more in rent, and if they want to buy a home now they're going to spend a lot more for that same home. Thinking about a concern that I've received from many clients, really over the last couple years, even about, hey, I'm really comfortable paying my rent right now. And I know if I go to buy a house, I'm going to pay a lot more per month to buy a home compared to what I'm paying for my rent. And I think it's because a lot of buyers, they get focused on the actual monthly payment that they're paying and not the other benefits that come with buying a house. For example, maybe you're renting a home and you're paying $2,300 or $2,400 a month, and you're saying, that same home, if I were to buy it, the payment would be $3,500 or $3,600 a month. That's $1,000 more than what I'm paying in rent right now. So clearly, it just doesn't make sense to buy a home. Again, you might not be looking at some of the other reasons why you should be buying a home. So I want to share with you a tool that we have that is a buy versus rent kind of comparison chart. And what this tool or what this chart will actually do is it's going to show you all the different things that you need to consider when you're buying a house. It's not just as simple as saying, what am I paying in rent and what am I paying for my mortgage? There's other things that you need to consider. So let me share my screen here so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so there we go. I'm on the screen now. This is my buy versus rent comparison. And pretty much what I've done here, and if I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, this is a 9-year look at what the comparison would be if you were to rent for the next 9 years versus if you were to buy a home today and own that home for the next 9 years. Now, right off the bat, I'm gonna come back to the top so I don't give away the main point here. But the things that most people focus on is this number right here, the cash flow difference. What this is basically saying is over a 9-year period, and by the way, the numbers that I'm using, let me just scroll down so you can see the numbers. I'm saying that if somebody was to spend $2,400 a month in rent versus a $3,800 mortgage payment. So I'm not being light with my comparison here. I'm not saying, oh, a $2,400 rental payment versus a $2,800 mortgage payment. No. I'm being realistic. $3,800 mortgage payment. That's $1,400 more per month that you would spend on a home. Okay, so I'm not holding back here. But one of the things that you're going to see right away is that rent doesn't stay the same. And you probably know this. You know that your rent, what it was 5 years ago, is not the same as today. So what you would obviously know is that 9, 10 years from now, that rent is also not going to be the same. And in fact, if you follow average rental increases per year, which I believe is around 4 or 5% increase per year, actually by the time you get to year 9 or year 10, your rent payment will be around $3,800 for that same home you're renting today for $2,400. Now, if you remember, I just said that your mortgage payment would be around $3,800. So even with that, you are looking at having a rent payment that's almost equal to what your mortgage payment will be. And that's why we hear from home buyers today, people who have maybe owned their home for the last 10 years and their monthly payment's only $2,000 a month or $2,400 a month, where they're saying, well, yeah, but 10 years ago, I was only paying $1,400. So it was still a stretch for me. But now today, I'm like, I'm thankful that I own a house because I couldn't even get into a rental for what I'm paying for my house right now. So that's something to consider, that your rent's going to keep going up and eventually it's going to outpace what your mortgage payment would be. So that's the first part, was what numbers I'm using there. But again, what most buyers are thinking of is, well, my total for renting is going to be around 335,000 over the next 9 years. Whereas if I was paying $3,800 for a mortgage payment, man, I'd be spending 421,000 over the next 9 years. So I'm losing $86,000 over that 9-year period. So again, obviously it makes more sense to rent, right? Well, hold on. Let me show you a little bit more here. Because what you also may not consider is that over the next 9 years, your home is going to go up in value. That's an asset that is going up in value. And even at a modest 5.2, which is the average appreciation per year across the country, which we see a lot more than that even in our area. But even at a 5% appreciation gain, you will gain over $290,000 in appreciation on that home that you're owning. And oh, by the way, this is based on a $500,000 home with a minimal down payment. So again, I'm not going anything crazy like a $400,000 home with 20% down. No, I'm just using an average home in our market with a minimum down payment of 5%. So your appreciation gain is over 290,000. On top of that, because over that 9-year period, you've been paying down your mortgage, you've actually now gained about $62,000 additional equity because your mortgage balance is continuing to go down. So that's on top of it as well. Then on top of that, another thing that people don't usually consider is the tax benefit over renting. Keep in mind, you get to write off some of your interest that you claim. And if you have kids and you have a mortgage on top of that, that will allow you to now itemize some of your deductions and even get more tax benefits than you're currently getting while you're renting. But the tax benefit on this one would be around $9,300 over that 9-year period, just in tax savings alone. That's around $1,000 a year if you add that, if you calculate that out. So when everything is said and done, you factor in the appreciation gain, you factor in the gain of paying down your mortgage and just earning that additional equity, you factor in the tax benefits. But then I hear people say, "But yeah, Kenton, but if I sell the home 9 years from now, I'm gonna pay costs, and there's gonna be costs to sell and different things I'm gonna lose." Oh yeah, we're factoring that into. Like for example, when you bought the home, maybe it was around $10,000 in closing costs, so we factor that in as a negative to buying a home. And then if you were to sell the home 9 years from now, we factor that in also, around $31,000 in extra costs that you have as a seller just to sell your home. So overall, we're factoring in it all. But even with all of that, on a $500,000 home purchase, you will be gaining around $234,000 over that 9-year period by owning the house instead of renting. Now, if I could take this little slider here and move it all the way out to 20 years, this would start getting absolutely crazy on the benefit of buying versus selling. But even if I shorten this down to 4 years, you're still gaining around $37,000 compared to renting. And that's not even taking into account the rent really getting up to like year 9 or year 10 when it almost matches your mortgage payment. So even in the short term, sometimes I hear clients go, well, yeah, but over like a 2 to 3 year period, it doesn't make sense. Okay, even 3 years, you're gaining about $16,000. I think it's right around that 2 to 3 year mark when it starts to kind of pencil out. So if you plan on living in this home for more than 3 years, you will have made a better choice buying that home, even today with the higher prices, compared to renting a home over the next 3 years. Now, I want to clarify one thing here, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can go back to this. But I do want to clarify one thing here. I'm not talking to those of you who say, "Well, yeah, but I can't afford that $3,800 home." I understand that right now our market is kind of crazy and home prices are also crazy. So sometimes you do have to make some sacrifices, maybe in your location. You have to move a little bit further away from your current job or your current employment, maybe increasing that commute time a little bit to be able to get into home ownership and find something that's more affordable for you. Yeah, I know it's convenient to spend $2,400, $2,500 a month in rent and only be 10 minutes away from your work and commute. uh, Getting into maybe a similar $2,800 or $3,000 monthly house payment might increase your commute 45 minutes or an hour every day. There are going to be some sacrifices to that to gain that home ownership and appreciation and all the benefits that come with buying a house. So I'm not oblivious to that and some of those sacrifices. What I'm talking, and I guess the person that I'm talking to here is the person that they can afford that home. They can afford that $3,500 payment or that $3,800 payment, but they're going, yeah, but it's just so comfortable renting for $2,400. Okay, I get that, but if you see the numbers there, the numbers don't lie. You can gain so much more owning a house compared to renting when you can afford that house payment. Now, if you do need help maybe coming up with a budget, coming up with a plan on how you can maybe increase your numbers from 2,800 up to 3,000 or 3,200, hey, how can I dial in my budget or dial in my finances a little bit where I can afford that little bit higher price home or something that's closer to my work or making my commute even better, then those are things I can definitely help you with. I can definitely kind of talk with you about them, and we can maybe work through some options to get you into that home that works for you. And maybe that home that is closer to your job or your work is your second home that you buy or your third home that you buy. Maybe the goal is to live in this next home for the next 3 to 5 years while you pay down that mortgage. It gains appreciation. You benefit from all the benefits of home ownership. And then after 5 years, now you're able to sell that home, capture all that appreciation, and go buy something that's a little bit closer to your work. And then that home, you live in it for 3 to 5 years, and you take that appreciation, buy something that's a little bit closer, maybe a little bit bigger yard, a few more bed or an extra bedroom, an extra bathroom. You begin to upgrade that little by little. Next thing you know, you're on the third or fourth home purchase, and you find that, oh, now I'm able to get into that dream home. Now I'm able to buy that home that I've always dreamed of living in, that's 10 minutes away from my work and commute, has an acre of land, and I can have a garden, and now you can start dreaming. But that only happens when you take that first step. It only happens when you buy that first home that's like, man, that dump that I lived in, oh, I can't even believe it. But it was a sacrifice that got me to where I am. So it's just something to think about. Hopefully this helped you. Hopefully this information was something that may work for you. If you want me to run those buy versus rent calculators for your scenario so you can see what your numbers would look like, let me know. I'm happy to run those for you. Reach out to me. My contact information will be all on this page or in the description below. Reach out. I'll run that calculator for you. I'll send it over to you, and you can take a look and see what your numbers could look like. So thanks so much for joining me this week on a little bit longer video, but I really wanted to get this out there, especially at the beginning of the year. For some of you that maybe needed to hear this, that it's time to stop renting and it's time to start owning your own home. So hopefully this helps. Thanks so much for joining me this week. Have a great week.